Friends, I am going to commit what is, according to a certain demographic, the greatest crime you can do as a white knitting podcaster. Yes, exactly. We are going to knit a petite knit pattern in a shade of brown. More specifically, we will be knitting the holiday slipover in my silk blend 4-ply cabled yarn. That's what we're going to do today. And hopefully it'll only last today. It's with 10mm needles, not my preferred size, but that's what you get when you make 4-ply yarn. It's getting quite bulky. But that means we might also be done with this pretty quickly. So now that we have our knit established, let's unpack my opening statements, the hook with which I try to reel you in. It is true that a certain demographic on the internet, Craftsnark, likes to talk about the fact that white knitting podcasters like to knit PetiteKnit's designs in certain shades of brown, more specifically beige. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, it's popular for a reason, right? There is also nothing wrong with snarking about that, because I can imagine that you're fed up with seeing your favorite or not so favorite creators doing the same thing over and over again. So I do hope you excuse me for doing it as well. This is not your standard brown, right? It's a little bit different, yeah? I also do not consider myself a knitting podcaster. I might be a craft vlogger, but don't think that you could call this, whatever this channel is, a podcast, right? I kind of would think that to be an injury if you do. Like, I'm hurt if you call this a podcast, because personally I find knitting podcasts to be boring. Unless the podcaster themselves has a really engaging personality and is super funny, knitting podcasts to me are quite boring, and I do not see the appeal in it. This is why I started my channel as something that is not a podcast, because I was missing a certain type of content within this creator niche. Just the I'm going to knit and tell you silly stories kind of content. So I'm going to knit and tell you silly stories. What a delectable color combination is happening over here. This is approximately what my that little skein, if you remember, that I applied at the end from what I had left over from my first time bob and chicken. I know this is a convoluted story, but I failed at bob and chicken twice, and this is what was left when I failed it the first time, and it gets us a pretty decent amount. I'm getting hopeful that I did spin enough. Ooh. If you were hoping this to be a project where I had to spin more in the middle of it, you can continue hoping, of course, but I'm hopeful that it will not be the case this time. And yes, my voice sounds a little bit different. I feel like sinusitis is coming up. Could be, like I get sinusitis multiple times a year. So we'll see. Pray for me that I won't get sick. Or sicker. I am now at the part of the pattern where they make me put my body on spare yarn or an extra circular needle if I had one, but all of them are in use. And then have me start the shoulders, and in the end it will be all coming together and I can continue knitting circularly, which I guess is a cool design feature, but also feels to me completely redundant when you can just knit a back and a front piece. But you know, I am not a knitting designer, so what do I know? Absolutely nothing, that is. This comment makes it also completely clear to you that I did not choose this pattern because of the clever design construction or because of PetiteKnit being a popular designer or, you know, anything other than just this pattern fit my yarn. I am on gauge for this pattern with my really silly chaotic yarn that I made. This is why I am knitting this particular pattern. And also because it is a perfect blank canvas for what I'm about to do next with it. Because, of course, I have a tendency to prove to myself and all of you that I am a little bit different than all of the other YouTubers that you watch, even though I am an amalgamate of all the YouTubers that I personally like. You will see what that is in a few moments or minutes, whatever. I don't know if you experience this as well, but I feel so much less accurate and so much more clumsy when knitting with this big size, come on, you see, of needles. I fail to hit the stitch, hit the mark, like every 2 stitches or so. This fabric is super satisfying to look at. Like these speckles of the silk and the colors, maybe possibly because I did a 4-ply, it doesn't look like a regular self-striping yarn. It's much more uniform in its chaos. I really like it. It's a very autumnal vibe, and personally to me also a very mom vibe, but that is because my mom had a sweater that had details in almost quite the same kind of yarn. She had that sweater for over 20 years, so I very much instinctively think of that sweater. Yeah, very nostalgic, even though it's a new thing. I have now connected the entire body to each other back into a circle, or well, into a circle. I also have connected my final cake of this yarn, which is admittedly the largest one that I have. So if you were hoping to see some spinning content in this here video, I think like a smidge harder hoping might just do the trick. Your prayers have been answered. I lost at Yarn Chicken. However, that one bat that I still have will be plenty, because all I have to do is a little bit of the back ribbing and then ribbing for neck and arm size. Doing a Italian bind-off is all fine and dandy to have neat edges, but what do you have to do if you have to store a lot of brain up your noggin? Or if you wear glasses. Help! I gotta take off my glasses. I know, this is weird. I'm going to put them back on. Here we go. Here is our blank canvas, because as I said before, we are going to do a bit more than just this, because this was like all in all maybe 2 or 3 days of knitting. And to be honest, it's also a little bit broad. I think we're going to make it even more interesting than it is already now with the nice yarn. And my reason for this actually is, I don't know if you have noticed, maybe you're new here and then hi, welcome. I hope you like shenanigans. But if you did notice that we now are a community of 5,000 subscribers big, then here are the celebrations! Now, when talking to someone who is outside this community about the fact that I have now 5,000 subscribers, they had the idea of, why don't you release some merch? And at first, that like completely went against all the things that I stand for. How capitalist and, you know, fast fashion would that be? So I was like, no, what are you saying? Until I, of course, realized that you all, or most of you, are makers. So we can make our own merch. And that's what we're going to do. Not because I am full of myself, but because I think it is a nice idea to make some merch together. So if you already have a top or something that you can think that you can like duplicate, stitch something on, feel free to craft along, I say. My plan right now is to take this space, this blank space, and you know, duplicate stitch the word Scales Goblin on here. So people in the know will know, and also it's just true.
To make the design, I used the mostly free-to-use website stitchfiddle.com. This video is not sponsored, but I would still love to put a spotlight on Stitchfiddle, as it is a useful resource for more than just knitters. You can choose your craft, subcategory of pattern you need, and even which yarn you're making this in. I am choosing to work from an empty canvas, but you can upload a picture if you want to. So if you ever feel the need to make some merch of, let's say, your favorite metal band, this is also how you could do it. I will put the chart of the design I made for this fest on my Patreon on the free tier, so that anyone can craft along if they want to. I wanted to embroider my design with black yarn, yet try as I might, I couldn't find a skein that matched the thickness of my handspun. Actually, all I had in my stash was a skein of black sock yarn. I doubled the yarn and got to stitching. Doubling this yarn still wasn't quite the right thickness, but I was happy with this. And when I was done with all the letters, I noticed that I had embroidered them on the backside instead of on the front, so I could start all over again!
Ta-da! As you can see, this is not a perfect duplicate stitch work. Oh, no, this is a chaotic duplicate stitch work. Yeah, I apparently wasn't really good at tracking, especially my horizontal lines. could be because my stitches weren't all that even because of the not so even yarn. But I've got to take responsibility for my own mediocreness. And just admit that I had difficulty tracking the horizontal line, so a couple of letters, especially more around the beginning, so like the O and the H, are not level. Doesn't that just add to the overall Chaos Goblin sense of things? I also do not know whether I have styled this in a way that is satisfactory to me, but I am not completely sure that this is because of the choices I made or because I'm not 100% in on the shape of the garment itself. I somehow think I've got like a tiny little voice inside of my head being a nuisance, telling me that it would be better if this was shorter. What do you say? Should I shorten the top to something that just fits on the waist and then I can wear it like all my other cropped garments? I have a lot of cropped garments and this is like a length I do not know what to do with. So I might leave your suggestions in the comments. Should I just... I'm inclined to say yes. But what do you say? But I was correct in my previous video that this yarn would be perfect for a vest. This is absolute autumn vibes. Vibes are everywhere and they are good. They are the best vibes. Yes. I'm also really happy about, you know, the Chaos Goblin situation over here. It's just telling the truth, man. It's just telling the truth. In any case, do let me know if you use this chart on anything that apparently has space for 30 stitches and 15 rows of Chaos Goblin text. I would really love to know what you're making with it. Tag me on it on Instagram if you can, you know, @menwolden. And then again, shit's crazy that we're 5,000 subscribers big at this point. Almost nearing, well actually at this point in time, closer to 6,000. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed. And well, for the rest, if you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe. But of course, that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. But before we do that, maybe you could look at some more knitting shenanigans over here. Bye!